Hello, welcome. How's it going, folks? I am trying to figure out lighting in my studio so that my glasses are not a problem. Hang on a second. It's a different season, and the sun is slightly different. Okay, is that a little bit better? How's everybody doing? Welcome to my weekly permaculture AMA. This is any and all questions that you have about gardening, sustainable living, permaculture, design, etc., etc. I'm here to answer all of them and to just chat about whatever y'all want to talk about. I am in my garden studio, and there's been quite a bit of noise because it's a really nice summer day. And so like the neighbor kids have been out, and there's a lot of dogs barking and things. So if there's ambient noise in this video and it's distracting, please let me know. Thank you. Thank you. I am so unbelievably jet lagged, you guys. I'm not sleeping super much at all. So we'll see how this goes. I may be a little bit discombobulated, but I didn't anticipate how bad the jet lag would be. Like on the way out there, I just stayed awake. On the way to the UK, I stayed awake for like the first 24 hours. I didn't sleep on the plane, and I just tried to go to bed at a normal time. And then I woke up really, really early, but was like relatively well regulated. I had to take a couple of naps, but on the way back, it's been terrible. I just have not been sleeping well. So, yeah. Okay, let me know. We're just gonna power through with a really bad lens glare. The sun is just, it is what it is. Been what it been. So it has been really hot here in Portland. It was obviously really hot in the UK. There's a drought declared in France and Spain and part of Wales. It is borderline, if not drought conditions, in a lot of places in the American West. There are 2 fires happening in Eastern Oregon for which the Trump regime has denied FEMA funding. And I am happy to talk about how to garden and do dryland gardening, or what to do with your garden when you are experiencing drought conditions, etc., etc. So if you have any questions around that, I have a little bit of experience. Here in Portland, it tends to be pretty wet most of the year, but it's dry. Basically July, August, and all of September. It doesn't rain at all. And so we have to have water conservation and also water storage for the summer. You end up with a really big water bill. So I have a fair amount of experience trying to garden in the summers here. It's getting worse and worse. I realize like everywhere, but it's now to a point where we're seeing older, more mature trees, native trees that are struggling in our summers. And I know that that is not a condition that is unique to us here in Oregon. So hello, thank you. Hello in Sweden, hello. Trisha's going to come and moderate. She is just at the gym swimming laps, so she'll be a little bit late. Yes, okay, throw your questions at me. Is it possible for dirt to go bad in indoor pots? Nothing this year, seeds even sprouted. I've tried about 15 different types of new seeds. I'm just throwing money away at this point. Okay, so that's a really good question. Dirt doesn't go bad, but dirt in a pot, right? Soil in a pot is a finite set of nutrients. And so if you're reusing dirt, or if you have potted plants, you do constantly have to feed that. It's not like having a plant out in the ecosystem, or if you are trying to reuse that soil multiple times, you may find that it is depleted of certain nutrients. There are plenty of folks who reuse their potting soil. In fact, it's a pretty common strategy. I would not recommend doing it, but I see it on some of the like hippie gardening forums and Mother Earth News forums from back in the day. People would reuse their seed starting mix, and in order to sterilize it, they would bake it in trays in the oven. I wouldn't recommend that. You'll make your whole kitchen smell like dirt. But it is something that you could do. If you really want to do that, I would recommend maybe solarizing it outside under clear plastic. But lots of folks do that and don't have a problem. So if you're finding that your seeds aren't germinating well in your soil, I would first look to other conditions of your seed starting tray, particularly whether or not you have enough moisture, right? Insufficient moisture is probably the number one reason I see folks have their seeds not germinate. But yes, functionally, if you have soil in a pot or in a tray, it doesn't go bad, but you can have those nutrients in it essentially used up. So then you want to think about adding back nutrients. But when you're doing seed starting, you want to be really careful that you're not adding too much nitrogen in particular, and also potassium. Hello in Pennsylvania. Hi, how's it doing? How's it going out there? Trish kept us entertained while you were gone. I'm so grateful. You guys, I took all social media off my phone. So like I didn't look at my YouTube at all. And I didn't know how things were going. And Trish sent me, I had WhatsApp on my phone. So she sent me a text and she was like, I'm screwing around a little bit with your YouTube. And I was like, okay, girl, we've been besties since we were 14. So I will trust you to just do whatever you're going to do. Hello in California. Is it pretty dry out there? You can accelerate seed starting by soaking in diluted peroxide. I have not tried that, but I do accelerate seed starting for my legumes in particular, peas and beans, by soaking overnight, or you can put them in a plastic bag in between layers of soaked paper towel, and then you get quicker germination. And I found you get less, you can do it with your pumpkin seeds too, with any of your squash and melon seeds, you can soak them overnight and have more rapid germination. I found it also reduces that tendency of those larger seeds to push up out of the soil as they're absorbing moisture in your seed starting tray. Sometimes they can have that kind of upward momentum and really pop up out of the soil. If I soak them, I find that doesn't happen quite as much. Yeah. You know what? I realize that I'm really cheap and I don't typically purchase seed starting mix. The only times I've used seed starting mix are back when we grew veggies for a nonprofit food bank here in East Portland. They would often get lots of donations, and there would be donations of like sterile potting mix, seed starting mix. And then one time my mom gave me a bag for my birthday. But typically I start my seeds in whatever I have on hand. Compost from the garden, or even just like dirt from the garden, and I don't sterilize it. That does come with the risk of importing diseases, in particular fungal issues, but I count on some percentage of loss, and I've not really had a huge issue with it. So I had a friend gift me a begonia. Thank you, Kimmy. I'm reading your question here. I had a friend gift me a begonia, then it got waterlogged, but I hadn't watered it. I'm in Sheboygan. Hello. What did I do? I ended up moving it outside, but maybe you could describe for me a little bit more about what it is that caused you to believe that it was waterlogged. I definitely, and do you mean like what kind of begonia are you talking about? First of all, um, if you're having like a lot of begonias are more, they're not like straight up a succulent, but they are plants that really, what's succulent like, I guess I should say, and are they don't need to be watered as often as other houseplants that you might have. So I really let the soil dry. I'm not like a huge houseplant person. Ruth is a huge houseplant person, but when that's my eldest kid, for people who don't know. When I helped take care of my parents, my mom and dad were huge into bonsai and epiphytes and every orchids and every single kind of houseplant you could possibly imagine. And my mom had tons of begonias, tons. And so when she became ill and my dad was blind, then it was up to me to water and care for all of their houseplants, and a very steep learning curve because like the things I grow in pots are like a pothos I've had forever, and my citrus trees, and I have some potted lilacs as well. But I found the begonias needed less watering than some of the other houseplants that my parents had. So making sure that the soil gets really, really dry. If it gets like kind of like when I would think of waterlogged, I would think that you're looking at that kind of like soggy, droopy foliage. And if the soil is wet enough in between that you're still getting that kind of behavior out of the plant, let it dry out more thoroughly. I don't know if that's helpful enough or not. Maybe add a little bit more context and I might be able to help a little bit better. A heating pad helps with germination as well as a sunny windowsill. Completely agree. I have a greenhouse in my front yard that we made out of old windows and pallets and stuff, but I also have a window seat in my front sunroom, my front living room, and that's great for seed starting. It really raises the temperature quite a bit. You get that lovely greenhouse effect, and it really helps have that germination happen more quickly. Although for surface sown crops like carrots or dill, you end up, if you have a sunny window, you end up with the surface drying out and crusting. It's also lettuce, right? Another one that likes to be surface sown. And so you want to be really careful if you have all of that extra sunshine, that you're not having that crusting and that drying out of the top layer, then you'll get reduced germination. Hello, Trish, my moderator is here. Yay. Okay, I'm catching up on questions. It's okay to be a skinflint. Yes, I'm absolutely frugal. I'm cheap, frugal, whatever you want to say. Are we headed for the apocalypse? What does that mean? What does that mean? My friend Knitting Cult Lady had a video on this yesterday, the day before, and she and I agree in this regard. Apocalyptic thinking is not realistic. It's not helpful, and it's not accurate, right? There's never going to be the end of everything, and apocalyptic thinking gives you the permission to give up, right? If the future is going to be terrible and it's going to be a short duration and everything's going to be over, then you don't have to struggle and plan and work for something better. So no apocalypse. Yeah. In fact, I think it's really important that we continue to plan for abundance. And I think gardens are like a really good way that we can do that. We can plan for a better future, because so much of what you do in the garden is always investing in a future. It's always investing in those future yields. And you're investing labor. You're putting forth all of this labor and expense, knowing that there's no immediate gratification. Sometimes if it's in your garden, like you're grafting a fruit tree, right? You might not get fruit. Like my Fuyu persimmon took 7 years to produce fruit. Sometimes you have to have tremendous patience before you get a yield. So you have to be believing in the future. I think gardening is one of the most hopeful activities. Yeah. Hello. Thank you for hitting like on the live. I'm very frugal. My brother drives me crazy. He and his wife make triple our income and are always broke. You know, the average American has $45,000 in credit card debt. It's probably more than that. Actually, that statistic is a few years old. Going to reference for folks who haven't seen my video on, forgive my bad typing, Your Money or Your Life. That's my favorite book on finances. And I think it's really good because, you know, we are so preoccupied in the United States with making more money, and thinking about our earnings and our resources in something other than dollars, I think can be really helpful. There's a minimum amount of dollars that you need to be able to get by in the US. But then on top of that, there are things that are worth more than dollars. You reach a certain point where time is more valuable. You can't get your life hours back. So I'm always thinking about costs in terms of dollars, but also in terms of life hours that are spent. Okay. Someone said hi from Cardiff. Hello. I can't wait to go back there. Oh my gosh. I had the best time. And the Welsh language is so beautiful. I was trying to tell Trish, like, you go on the bus or you go places and they speak in Welsh first and then in English. And while we were out and about, I would hear people having conversations with each other in Welsh. And it just was like, it was really, really lovely. It was lovely to see folks trying to, I don't know, like, I don't want to say normalize, like trying to live out their culture and their language. It was beautiful. It's beautiful. I really, really loved it. I loved everything about Wales. Okay, I'll stop waxing about it. B said something yesterday about how we're repeating the 70s. I had a giant moment, realizing the gas lines. Yeah, she was talking about the Carter years. And I was like, that's true. I think we're in a moment where, I don't think we can draw a through line from Carter to Donald Trump, but I think that in terms of what's happening with gas and what's happening with the Middle East and the economy, there are many similarities, I think, between the 70s and now. Gas was $18 a gallon in the 70s gas crisis. I've been joking that Cascadia should settle on the pound sterling as currency so we can stop caring how the dollar is doing. Can I say something else about the UK? I filmed a really long video that's coming out later today. I think it's like half an hour long, which is long for me. Talking a little bit about what it was like going to the UK. But I found it really interesting that almost nobody takes cash. There were a couple of bakeries in Wales that were cash only. And I felt like that was a little bit of a fuck you to all of the digital currency. But it's really interesting when you look at like the tech bros, they want you to have digital currency and just tap your phone everywhere. And everywhere in the UK was like that. Just tap, tap, tap. And nobody had cash. And when you don't have physical books, when you don't have physical coins, currency, when you don't have physical copies of your music, then essentially you are entrusting that to some computer, to some algorithm, and to some human who controls it. So it really removes that. It removes that possession from you a little bit. It made me a little bit nervous, made me a little bit uncomfortable. And the times there were a couple of times I tried to pay in cash, especially um, in Bath and in London, and they were like, no. I tried to buy fish and chips in a pub, and I was like, oh, well, I'm getting ready to fly out tomorrow, and I have a 20-pound note left. And he was like, no, we don't take cash here. And I was so surprised by that. So I just came back from Mendocino. Oh, we're getting ready to go to Mendocino in less than 2 weeks. So I have an update video about that coming out. It's not great. It's not great, but I'm going back. It's so beautiful there. Oh, um, hello in Illinois. Waukegan. Oh, hello. Okay, I'm checking on questions, you guys. I pay with cash as much as possible too. I like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When you have a cash only economy, like one of the bakeries that we went to in Wales was we are choosing to be cash only because we don't want to pay the credit card fees. And it also made me realize that maybe there are different laws in the UK versus the US. I know this isn't gardening, but like in the US, there was a court case in SCOTUS case in like 2017, maybe, that made it so that businesses could pass on the credit card fees to the consumers. Prior to that, the businesses had to eat the 3 to 3.5% credit card fees. But that Supreme Court case means sometimes if you pay with a credit card, there will be an extra transaction fee, and you are having to pay the credit card company. And in Wales, this one bakery in particular was like, we're not paying the credit card company. We don't want to pay them 3.5%. And so I don't know if the law is different there, but it's just extra expense for the consumer for the convenience. Okay. Oh, thank you for that comment about a waterlogged plant. Thank you, Metalsmith. Yeah, it's totally okay. I think sometimes people are afraid with house plants, and even with your seedlings, people are afraid to repot or pot up, or also just like fix something. If your soil is really waterlogged, you can just dig up your plant and you can change the soil, or you can let the soil dry out. Your plant doesn't have to sit there with wet feet. That's a really good point. Um, okay. Hello in Southeast Portland. What are some good gardening resources? Do you mean books or do you mean places in Portland? I really, really love going to One Green World's fruit tasting. It's usually in the fall. They have their store on 100, I'm going to get the street wrong, Foster and 141st, maybe. They have in the autumn fruit tastings for all kinds, like their hardy kiwis and some of their later figs and their pawpaws and other fruits. And I think as a beginner, if you are interested in planting unusual tree crops, having a place where you can go and taste everything and see, like, do I even like this? Do I even enjoy eating this? I think that's a great way to start. If not, like asking in your local gardening group, people ask me all the time, like, do you have a pawpaw that I can have? If you live in Portland and you are considering growing pawpaws and you want to know what they taste like because you have no idea, hit me up. We can try and connect. And in September, I'll leave some out on my front porch for you. I can't really put pawpaws out in my farm stand because they'll all be gone immediately. There's only one place in Portland that I know of that sells pawpaws, and that is Lily Market. And they're usually like $8 a pound. They're crazy expensive. But I have more than I know what to do with. I have 3 trees and I probably only need 2. So if you are interested in trying pawpaws and you live in Portland, hit me up in early September, depends on what the summer's like, early to mid-September. Do you check Threads DMs at all? Okay, so hi, not really Rachel Atwood. Okay. I have Threads and it just automatically reposts my Instagram post to Threads. I don't have the Threads app and I think I've been on it twice ever. So that's a no. That's a no. It's just one more app that I don't have the wherewithal to check. And at some point in time, Instagram started automatically reposting over there. I'm really bad at checking DMs in general. I probably should turn my DMs off on Facebook. It gets really overwhelming. It's a lot of them, a lot of them. So no, I don't. I still need an assistant. In Ireland, you still use cash. That's good to know. What weather number are you there? Oh, what weather zone? 9A. I'm in 9A. Portland, Oregon used to be 8B. And hey, climate change, we are now 9A. So, yeah. It means that I can grow a huge array of plants that that I think a lot of gardeners can't, right? Like we were hugely 9A is sort of a sweet spot. It's a really versatile climate. I can grow so many of those temperate veggies, and I can push the envelope a little bit so that I can grow things like feijoas, and I can grow things that like figs here grow very, very easily, and I don't have to cover them in the winter. And then I can also push the envelope and grow plants like really would prefer maybe zone 10, but I just have to kind of baby them during the cold months early in the spring. And then if we have temperatures like my tree collards, if it gets below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, then I have to cover them so that they don't die. They'll totally die below 20. So oh yeah, thank you. Let's get back to that question about Southeast Portland real quick. So Southeast Portland, I don't really know what nurseries are in that area anymore. This is a safe space. I'm not a fan of Portland Nursery. My kid used to work there, and I'm not a fan of Portland Nursery for a lot of reasons. I think the plants are totally fine. But whatever. My kid did not have a good experience working there at all. And I realize nurseries that have really good options. I think if you're a new gardener in Portland or wherever you live, seeing if you can connect through your local gardening club. And one of the good ways I have found to connect with people and build those relationships is actually through Buy Nothing, which I've not been good at using for the last year. But Buy Nothing, especially if you offer up plants, you will immediately find other gardeners to be friends with, and local Facebook groups where you can find other gardeners to be friends with. I think there's so many people on Facebook in particular, whether or not you like using meta platforms, who want to be generous with their cuttings and their extra starts and things like that. And you can get so much information. And then also when you connect with those folks, they are likely growing things that do well in your climate, right? They are local to you. And so they may have expertise about particular varieties for your climate that that you may not get from like a big garden center or watching me online. I mean, I realize you're in Portland, but like for other folks, right? Check with Rossi Farms, maybe. So Rossi Farms is on my street. They're at the end of my street. Everybody knows where I live, so it's fine. Rossi Farms is the end of my street. They don't really grow starts, and they have a really neat event center, and I love the fact that there is a farm in my neighborhood. I'm not even really sure where they're selling all of their flowers and produce right now. I would love to see more of the permaculture content mirrored to your Patreon. Thank you. YouTube is too thick with all. Okay, thank you. That's a really good point. I've been trying to figure out how to expand my Patreon, and should I just repost all my videos over there, and what would be the best use of that space? So thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. Not Rachel earlier, who asked if I check my Threads DMs, and I say, no, I don't. I will try and check them, but if there's a deluge of messages, I might miss whichever one you sent. Feel free, and you can shoot me an email. I am way behind on my email after being on this trip, but if you shoot me an email and be like, hi, I'm that person who tried to get your attention on live, I will definitely check. I've made some amazing friends and acquaintances from local planty people Facebook groups. Totally agree. Totally agree. One of my favorite groups, which is no longer operating, and it was way back when I had 3 kids instead of 4. So that's, it's 15 years ago. There was a permaculture moms group in Portland, and we would get together and have potlucks, and we would share, plant starts and recipes, and we would do canning together. It was such a wonderful resource. And then there also was a radical homemakers group in Portland. They still have a Facebook group, but I don't know that they're active anymore. Another great resource for sharing all kinds of odds and ends that people have, and plant starts and extras. Like just so much of the gift economy, I think, gets lived out in those local groups, especially between moms. I did have a really good trip. Thank you. Yeah, it was really good, Tishy. Thank you. My local Trash Nothing group is a great resource for garden infrastructure. Oh yeah, use tomato cages, etc. I completely agree. Um, I think free cycle was something that was a significant part of how we got a lot of furniture and gosh, pots and things like that way back in the day. Way back in the day when it was still like a Yahoo list serve, free cycle was really, really important for us. I wish that there was an alternative. I know there's Craigslist free page, but I wish there was an alternative besides buy nothing groups. And I understand why they chose to organize through Facebook. I totally get that. But I wish there was a non-meta alternative that fit people's like met the need as much as buy nothing on Facebook. I actually really like the fact that buy nothing is organized by neighborhoods and it has that intentional like get to know your neighbor and things are within walking distance. What am I knitting? Just a hat. Just knitting a hat. This I did all of this on the train from no, on the bus from um let's see, from Cardiff to St. Fagans Outdoor Museum, and then all of the rest of this I did in the British Museum. So while I was walking around, just a hat. Do you guys want to see what else I knitted on my trip? I got some knitting done. So you know what? I often wear this cowl in my videos, and I made it like 10 years ago. And it's really, really worn out. It's been washed and mended and stretched out. I thought I would make myself a new one. So I made myself a new one. This is the exact same yarn. The dye lots are a little bit different. As you can tell, this one's more pink. But this is the shape the cowl is supposed to be. I added like 1.5 inches of extra rows. So let's fold it down to make it a little bit longer. And then this is the one from washing it. When you wash wool and it shrinks a little bit, even though this is washable wool, it tends to get fatter and shorter. And so this is the new one. And this is really, doesn't feel good. This is really, really soft. This is Malabrigo Rios, 3/4 of a skein. And then I had this left over from making a sweater vest a couple of years ago. I had a little bit less than 1 skein left. And so I made another cowl. These haven't been blocked. So the point at the top doesn't look great. But I made another one of these, which I'll probably give away as a gift. So I got a lot of knitting done, considering what we were doing. I like to knit while I hike or walk or ride the train or what have you. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for being here. So hello in New Mexico. Is it really hot there? It is probably like 80 maybe in Portland today. I still haven't gotten a mini split put in here. So it gets really hot in here. That's okay. It's going to happen. I'm going to get my mini split put in. It's just been, 20 things at once. There's a former member of the First United Methodist Church who continues to knit and donate hats, scarves, and mittens for the homeless in Elgin. Oh, that's awesome. I love knitting for charity. I've been really on this kick of like knitting hats and then just giving them out to people willy-nilly. But for a chunk of time, I did knitting hats for like preemies in the NICU, but then also for cancer support groups. After my mom got sick, I knitted a bunch of shawls and donated them. I found that really, really rewarding. How's knitting cult lady? I think she's doing good. I haven't. You guys, I have not really caught up on the chats I'm in with other creators in a while because I took all that stuff off my phone for my trip. But even before that, I got like really burned out. So I think she's doing good. Hello in Queensland. Having a bit of a drought in Wisconsin. I think a lot of places definitely are. So going back to, you have to go back to Europe. There's, my next plan, I want to go back to Estonia and Prague, which I went to in college, but I also really want to go back and hike Wales. This is something that like maybe is permaculture related, is the carbon footprint of flying, right? So a trip from Portland to Europe is basically planting 2 trees and letting them grow and sequester carbon for 40 years. So I'm not somebody who's really anxious to fly on an airplane a lot. And I'm not really sure how I feel about the carbon footprint. No judgment on people who travel a lot. And I definitely, in an ideal world, I love traveling. I wish we had a way to do it that wasn't so carbon footprint heavy. My kid went to the Globe Theater this week and saw Love's Labor's Lost on her program. Like, I think they've designed the study abroad program that she's doing is for poli-sci. She's a poli-sci major, poli-sci, and then I think she's adding a second major in philosophy, and then her minor is in law, pre-law. And they're making sure to build in multiple trips. They're going to Manchester, and her sister was like, you should find Dan and Phil. But I know that they don't live there anymore, but they went to the Globe Theater. They're going to a couple of museums. They're going to go to a couple of concerts and see some things around London. So I think that's really great that they built that into the program. I would love to see Europe, but I'm scared of travel. I think you just kind of have to put yourself out there. I found when we're traveling, people are so kind and gracious. Everybody in the UK was really, really lovely when you just say, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Our first time catching a bus, I was like, can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing. Our first time catching a train with Great Western Railway, I just went up to the front desk and was like, hi, this is our second day in the UK. I have never ridden a train in this country before. I'm sorry, I'm like super ignorant. Can you just talk me through it? And they were so, so nice. Everybody was so nice. What are your thoughts on solar-powered homemade terracotta air conditioners? Also the non-powered versions. Anything with evaporative cooling. I think there are loads of non-powered. Terracotta is great, right? You can absolutely have that unglazed terracotta that you fill with water, and then you get that evaporative cooling. I like to do the wet sheet method, which is in college one year, I lived in a third floor of a house in Grinnell, Iowa, where the windows were all painted shut. And if you know what Iowa is like in the summer, it's really, really terrible. It's a bajillion degrees and all humidity. But I was really into that evaporative cooling, no AC in the house, windows painted shut. And so I would do the like take your bed sheet and put it in the shower and then wring it out and then lay underneath it and then put a fan on facing you. And that kept me really lovely and cool, actually. In the UK, it was definitely big time heat wave. Trish and I talked about it a little bit because a couple of the days it was just in the high 70s. And some of the days it was like 84. And Trish was like, that's not that hot. But I think it is for when you're in a country where the architecture, the buildings are designed to conserve heat, right? Small rooms, all these little Georgian hotels and things we stayed at, small rooms, no ductwork, again, windows painted shut. They are heavily designed to trap heat in a country where it's cold and heating rooms was really expensive. That's a great design until you get a heat wave. And then they're just so stuffy. Went to a couple of these tea houses and a couple of restaurants and like it's stiflingly hot because you're in this tiny and it worked. Okay, I'm hanging up. Bye. Sorry guys. Sorry. Hi, how's it going? Sorry, my internet got really weird and then it crashed when I tried to reboot it. So I am now on my phone hotspot. We'll see if that works. So I got a Wi-Fi booster for out here, but it's a little bit wonky. How's everybody doing? I was in the middle of saying something and I can't remember what. Sorry, you guys. It been what it been. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. You guys are the best. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Oh, is the okay? A couple people said no audio. I'm trying to unplug and replug. Can you hear me? No. Any audio now? Can you guys hear me now? How about that? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm taking off the microphone. For some reason, it's not wanting to connect to the mic. So, sorry, you guys. Technical glitches. Okay, I'll put my mics away. Okay, thanks, Trish. Thanks for letting me know you can hear me okay. The background noise might be worse if I don't have my mics on, but you know what? We're just YOLOing. We're just rolling with it. Okay. I have no idea what I was saying. So feel free and hit me with your gardening questions or what have you. Oh my gosh, you guys. Jet lag is the worst. Hello, chat. I don't remember what I was talking about. This hat, this hat that I'm making, by the way, this is also leftover yarn. Sometimes I wear a green cardigan that I knitted, and I had a ball left of this, and so it's not for me, but it'll match the cardigan. Oh, someone asked about how to repurpose a twisted cherry limb that came down from a tornado. Ooh, that's a really good question. Hmm. Um. Gosh. For something inside the house, I think if it's a really beautiful and ornate, like cherry bark is so beautiful, I would think about doing some kind of structure that I hung something off of, right? Is there art? My kids are always cranking out paintings, and I'm always hang on. Let me get this one from B really quickly here. Hang on. Um, well, so B does actually to buy B art supplies in the UK because containers of paint are too big to bring on the plane. So like this one of hers, I frequently will just take with instead of buying a frame, I frequently will just tack ribbon on the back and then do a hanger like this. And so I think if I had a beautiful twisted cherry limb, I would put it on the wall and I would have paintings maybe smaller than this, right? She does a lot of little ones and I would hang them on that. That's probably what I would do with it. I don't know if other people have thoughts. Um, Europe doesn't have AC. Some of the hotel rooms we stayed in did. Some of the ones we stayed in did not, and it was a little bit rough. But a lot of the ones we stayed in had AC just in your room, right? They had a mini split in the room, and so the hallways and the like restaurant and the bar and things like that did not have AC, but your individual room did, which was just a lifesaver. I'm not in Europe now. I'm home. I'm home in Portland. I was in the UK for 10 days. It's huge. Oh, it's really large. I don't know. I would use it for something decorative. You need a new banister for your stairs or something. Um, or something decorative in the garden too, right? Like some kind of support or some kind of trellis. I would probably use it for that. Yeah, thank you. I had not been out of the country since I was 20. Well, I went to Canada a couple of years ago for Derby in 2017, but you guys, that's almost 10 years ago. That's not that It's not a couple of years ago. I hadn't been to Europe since college, and since B was doing a study abroad, and she was really nervous about going by herself, and just saved up and got some cheap tickets. Make a coat rack with a cherry limb. That's a great idea. With the canvas sides painted, it's normal to not use a frame. You sound like my kid. Yes, I completely agree. We often go to the thrift store and try and find frames there for things. And I've gotten a couple of really good frames at the thrift store, especially when she's doing like acrylic on a piece of like a board or on paper. Um, yeah, then I definitely look at frames. But if it's on canvas, I tend to not frame them. I'm glad so it was hot. It was hot though. One of the days, my last day in London, I think it was like 83 or something, but it wasn't like 90 degrees Fahrenheit at all. I'm always welcome to come to Canada. You know, I've only been to Vancouver. I only went for roller derby and I didn't really see that much of it. So I would love to go back to Canada. Not to be like, basic white girl, but I would love to go to Prince Edward Island. That's somewhere I would love to go. Actually, I have a friend who lives in New Brunswick, and I would like to go visit her too. When Donald Trump got reelected, she tried to get me um, to did I say New Brunswick? I meant Newfoundland. You guys, I'm so sleep deprived. She lives in Newfoundland, and when Trump got reelected, she tried to get me to sell my house and move there. How much would I charge for one of my fish cardigans? Ooh, you know, too much, too much. I definitely do knitting for gifts, but I don't really knit and sell any other thing. Well, I do sometimes sell fingerless mitts, but not like whole sweaters. I also should say that pattern, when you buy a pattern from a knitwear designer, it's a personal license. And so you are telling them, like, I promise not to sell the garment that I knitted using your design unless I get a commercial license. So I couldn't sell those fish sweaters even if I wanted to. Quebec is so beautiful. My parents went there and really, really loved it. Where did I camp in Alaska? Wait, was that for me or for somebody else? Um, I backpacked around Alaska when I was 16 with a group from school. So we went to Ketchikan. We went to Seward. I did the Mount Marathon, run up Seward and run back down, or run up Mount Marathon and run back down in Seward. We went to Katmai, and oh gosh, we went all over. How is Apollo doing? He's doing about the same. I was really worried that things were going to go downhill while I was gone and he was going to be in a bad way. But he's doing about the same. He's a little bit thinner. He's been struggling at night. He was up panting a lot in the night and he's on a lot of meds. So it's hard to know if it's the dementia that makes him agitated or if he's having discomfort. I don't think so because he's on pain meds. Oh, Trish, you told them that I camped in Alaska. I did. Yeah, I backpacked around and I did like a field biology class and I had a lot of birds to my lifetime bird list. Oh, have you guys seen? Okay, hang on a second. So actually, I'm not gonna mess with my computer. Ruth called me yesterday to tell me about this documentary. Speaking of lifetime bird lists, I'm looking it up. There is a documentary. Listers, a glimpse into extreme bird watching. She said it's the best documentary she's ever seen, that it was riveting. And so I really want to watch it. Listers, a glimpse into extreme bird watching. Whatever. IMDb only gives it an 8.5. She said it was amazing. So I'm going to watch it. I'm definitely a big bird watcher. Much more so before I had kids, but I have a lifetime bird list. So I don't know if you know, but my focus in college, they didn't have minors at Grinnell, and capstones were kind of like a new thing. But my independent study and my capstone was actually on avian cognition, and I did a secondary capstone on songbird migration. I went to Belize and did songbird counts, and so birds were actually the thing that I was going to study before I decided not to go to grad school, and I put my husband through grad school instead, and we had kids, and I didn't go back. But of course, I have a lifetime bird list. I have been a huge bird nerd for forever. I think I'm not one of those knocking out their lifetime bird list in 1 year, and some people have a goal of trying to. Oh my gosh, there are people who spend their entire lives like sleeping in their cars and running around chasing rare bird sightings. It's not me, but yeah. I did go to Grinnell. Yeah, Casey and I both went to Grinnell. You guys, he was a senior and I was a freshman. He was a football player and I was a weird long-haired hippie who wore bell bottoms. We were very much an odd couple. Oh yeah, I did have a bird trapped in my wood stove. When it was not lit, you guys, we got a bird in our wood stove. That was really an adventure. Yeah, I went to Grinnell and it was a wonderful experience. I think it was really formative. I was very, very different than I am now. I tried to get any of my kids to go there, and none of them really wanted to. All of them at this point are going to state schools in Oregon, which is, that's fine by me. And I also understand why my kids would not want to right now be living in Iowa. Like culturally, it's so different. And the governor of Iowa is, yeah, I was very, very, very weird. I was very weird. What kind of donations toward your dream property would be impressive enough to get you to gift a sweater? Oh my goodness. That's get back to me on that. I actually really love knitting sweaters. I absolutely adore. Ruth and B have tons of sweaters, so we should definitely talk about that. So I do have a big update on what's happening with the project in California. It's going sideways again, but we're gonna keep moving forward, I guess. I'm from Iowa, and my sister-in-law went to Grinnell. That's awesome. My dad's family, originally the English side of the family is originally from Iowa. And I decided to go there because I applied to, you guys, I was way overachiever. I applied to 11 colleges, and I applied only to colleges that did not have a Greek system and only colleges that had a really strong biology department. And I toured a bunch of them, and Grinnell had a relatively new science building, and I absolutely was blown away by the science professors, the biology professors that I met with, and the facilities there. And I they have a big like prairie lab, and being able to go out into the prairie was amazing. And so I was totally hooked. Also, when I was a prospe, that's a prospective student, Dar Williams was performing, and I got to see her live. It was amazing, amazing. So, um, yeah, yeah. Grinnell had such a good science department. You guys, Grinnell also, I don't know if they're still this way. When I went there, Warren Buffett was head of the trustees. And so they had the largest endowment per capita of any school in the US. So I did this 2-week project on songbird migration in Belize. And there were like other people in my group, like one of the gals in my group was working with a traditional like Mayan medicine worker and like doing some kind of, some kind of cultural, you know, I don't want to say like botanical, pharmacological exchange, whatever. She had her whole project. Somebody else was doing something that was about mapping coral reefs. There was a group of us and we each had our own research projects. It was free. The endowment paid for all of that. It was unbelievable. Great experience. I loved Grinnell. It's very different than when I went there. They had self-governance when I went there, no rules at all. And other than like the academic honor code, right? But if you had conflict, you had to learn to negotiate with people. I think that ethos, that mindset of self-governance of like, you are a capable adult, you have the ability to navigate these difficult situations, you have agency, you can advocate for yourself, you don't have to be beholden to an arbitrary set of rules, but you can decide like what the culture looks like. You and all of your floor mates can decide what the culture looks like. We would vote on whether we wanted all gender bathrooms or dial-a-john or single sex. We would vote on like quiet hours. Everything was through like consensus and a democratic process. And that was so informative for me. And also just that like you had you had a, I don't want to say adults because we were adults as college students, but you had staff who were supportive, but they weren't there to hold rules over you and to restrict you. They really encouraged you to make adult decisions and to think really conscientiously about the choices that you were making. Super formative for me. I think that whole concept of self-governance really shaped a lot of the way that I ended up parenting my kids and a lot of my relationship to institutions and authority in general. Very much shaped by that. They don't have self-governance the same way because there were a couple of incidents of essays in the, I want to say early aughts, and they ended up having to change a lot of the policies. It was like a little bit more, I don't want to say a more innocent time when I went there, but yeah. Also, like you could smoke weed anywhere on campus. Like nobody cared about drinking, or it was like you do whatever you want. There was, it was all do whatever you want. You're an adult. You figure it out. You take care of yourself. How bad is the Greek system for colleges and universities? I am very much opposed to the Greek system. I have a lot of friends who participated in it and found it really supportive. I think it's a pay to play click, right? I'm not a fan, but I don't want to like shit on anybody. Really positive experience doing the Greek system. My kids who are at state schools don't participate in Greek life at all. Although there is a pre-law sorority, I think, at U of O that B is interested in maybe joining. So, I understand the purpose of those. Oh, hello. I lived in Oregon, and for 14 years, several cousins lived there. Oh, awesome. Hello. Oh, Leach Botanical Garden. Oh, yeah. It's a wonderful garden. Yeah, the Greek system, I think, condones um, lots of toxic behavior, right? And lots of hazing and lots of unhealthy terms of behavior versus, I think, a system of self-governance and encouraging students to take ownership over their own actions sort of is the opposite. I don't know. Um, hmm. Okay, I'm just checking comments, you guys. I had one student at a spreadsheet with 22 schools he was applying to. So Hal is gonna, my third kid is 18 and he's gonna start college in the fall. He only applied to one school. He thought about Grinnell, but again, didn't want to live in Iowa. So he applied to one school and think he has a full scholarship. So I'm pretty cheesed about that. Pretty happy about that. Ruth really, my eldest kid, is at Oregon State, and she really only applied to one school as well because she knew she wanted to be a fish and wildlife major. She wants to be a fish and wildlife biologist, and Oregon State has one of the best programs in the country for it. So easy peasy. The program that she really wanted is an in-state school. So 22 schools, that doesn't surprise me. I just couldn't make up my mind at the time that I had applied to college. There were so many places and I couldn't narrow it down to Grinnell or Earlham, which is where my parents went. I got offered a large scholarship to go to Earlham. And at the end of the day, their science department wasn't as strong. And also it was too close to home. It was only 3 hours from home. So, I was 18. Why do we let 18-year-olds have to make such huge, weighty decisions? Goodness. I agree. The Leach Gardens is a great place to go. I was a secretary in the fisheries department in Southern Illinois University. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually like Grinnell and Earlham. I decided at the very last minute. The science department really swung me. I think Earlham would have been great too. It also would have been very formative. It's a Quaker school, and I think it probably would have shaped me. I wouldn't have met my husband, but I realize that's not gardening talk, but okay. Someone made a comment the other day about how it is that we're handling 3 kids in college at once. So I think it's going to be really difficult. I'm going to have a child at home very swiftly, and he's going to get lots of love and attention from us. I think their question was more like, how are you affording college tuition for all of your children? Well, my 2 middle kids have full rides, so there's that. And then Ruth also has a partial scholarship. So B is going to be an RA next year. And I don't know, I know there's a lot of folks outside the US in the chat. Like RAs are basically student leadership that lives on the floor and have responsibilities. And if kids lock themselves out or they're drunk kids they have to deal with, whatever, that's their job. And in exchange, they get a huge deduction on their room and board. It pays for their whole meal plan. And I think like 60 something percent of their housing to make it work. Oh yeah, I got a bob yesterday. It's dry it or do anything with it, so it's curling the wrong way. It's supposed to curl under, but whatever. I just need a haircut. Thank you for saying that. I'm 55 now. I want to go to college. It's not too late, Kimmy. I don't know if anybody else feels this way in their late 40s and beyond, but going and taking B to London, I was like, what a thrilling time. It's too bad we can't live like multiple lives and have multiple experiences. I think it's so great that B's doing a study abroad. Ruth is about to get ready to go live in New Zealand for a year. And like to have all of these adventures, I think it's so awesome that that there are all of these opportunities available. And I don't have any regrets about the choices that I made in life, but I was like, gosh, I'd love to have, a summer in the UK or what have you. I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to be able to spend that time focused on studies, dedicating my attention and my resources towards studying again. Yeah, it's not too late to go back. I don't know if, oh wait, are you from hang on, I'll go back to my thought in a second. Are you from the Portland area originally, or did you move here? We've been here, how old is Ruth? 23. We've been here for 22 years. A couple of those years were in Lincoln County on the Oregon coast. But most of the rest of that time, we've been in Portland. So we were here for a little bit, went to Siletz, and then we came back because Siletz was very, very challenging. Not quite what we thought it would be. Came back to Portland. My husband is from Kalama, Washington. So he's from the Pacific Northwest. And when we started dating, he was like, my goal is to move back to the Pacific Northwest. So after he finished his first master's degree in St. Louis, we moved back here. But I'm an Air Force brat. So I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest until I went to go backpack around Alaska, flew to Seattle. That was the first time I'd ever been here. I was 16. Um, I agree with you. Education is resistance. Totally, totally great. So important that our kids continue to pursue their education. We're living in an era of anti-intellectualism, and it's really important that kids choose education. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So when I thought that Kamala Harris was going to get reelected, you guys, my plan was to go back to grad school and get my landscape architecture degree. That's something I still really, really want to do. Um, and if anybody's from Portland, Lewitt Park, which is one neighborhood over from mine, it's an Argay Terrace neighborhood, I think is one of the best examples I've ever seen of how landscape architecture can really create a fantastic, how landscape architecture can fold in all of these different elements that bring people together and give them so many different opportunities to use one shared space. And I would love to be able to do more of that. It's a 2-year master's program, I think. We'll see. We'll see down the road if I ever get to do it again. I don't feel like I'm too old to go get a master's and do that, but I put all of that on hold because, fascism. So, I am planning, though, in the fall, my 15-year-old is taking German, and my plan is to audit the class and take it with him. So I will not be a fake German speaker where I can say like a dozen phrases. I maybe will actually learn some German. And Ruth will tutor all of us because she's very good at her German. Have you ever heard of a book called This Is What Happens When Women Read? No, I have not. Not heard of that. I will have to look that up. Corvid cognition. No. Did you know that Baron Heinrich's book, The Mind of the Raven, is one of my favorite books? That came out when I was in college. That really shaped my independent study on avian cognition. Also, Green Pepperberg's book about Alex the African Gray, that was brand new. Showing my age here. That was brand new. When I was in college, I actually met Irene Pepperberg and got to chat with her about her research. She had brought one of her other African Greys with her because at the time, like Alex has since been, passed away, but at the time he didn't travel very well. He would get really anxious and pluck his feathers. So when she was touring and lecturing, she brought one of her other African Greys with her. Yeah. With the heat, I need to refill twice a day. Gosh, you guys, stay hydrated. I was really surprised in the UK how there aren't really very many drinking fountains. There aren't really many drinking fountains, and you have to ask for tap water. They don't just give it to you at the table. And how few people carry water bottles. I feel like you can't go anywhere in Portland without everybody having either their refillable coffee mug or a water bottle. And I didn't see that in Europe at all, which was interesting to me. Also, why is all of the coffee so small? The coffee is all Italian style. I had to get an Americano, and it'd be an 8-ounce Americano. I have to have a 12-ounce mug of coffee at all times. I'm definitely a terrible caffeine addict. Everybody drinks their flat whites, which is like what, like a ristretto. I don't, and a bunch of like a bunch of steamed milk. I like Americano and like this much half and half. I asked somebody the first day we were in the UK, I got a coffee and they said, "Oh, do you want espresso? What kind do you want?" Because it just said coffee, and I thought like, "Oh, I'll just get a." And she's like, "We don't do drip coffee." And I said, "Well, can I get an Americano and can I get it with cream?" And I guess they don't do that in the UK because I got my Americano and next to it was just a latte mug, just full of whipped cream. She thought I ordered an Americano and then just a cup of whipped cream. So, yeah. Where were we in the UK? Oh, I said this at the beginning. We flew into Heathrow. We went to Reading. Somebody asked me, why the hell would you go to Reading? I thought it was great, you guys. We were only there for one day. We took the bus from Reading, straight from the Heathrow airport, to Reading. It was pretty late in the day, and we wanted to get part way to Bath. So the plan was to get to Reading, eat food. The Indian food was amazing. Our hotel kind of sucked, but the Indian food was amazing. And we walked around for a while until it got dark. And then the next morning we got up and we took the train to Bath, and it was fabulous. Went to Bath. We went to Bristol. We did a one-day tour, went to Oxford and the Cotswolds. And then we went to Cardiff and we went around kind of southern Wales. We took buses. We actually got on the wrong bus one time, not the wrong bus, but we rode it too far. I didn't I didn't realize which bus stop we were supposed to get off on. And so we took this journey to just like the middle, some tiny little village, and then had to ride it back. It was really interesting. Anyway, um, I thought Reading was great. I don't know what the problem was. Why people were like, "Why'd you go to Reading?" I don't know. I had a good old time there. The food was fantastic. Um, hello neighbor on 113th. The Cotswolds was fantastic. It was very, very hot and very dry. And yeah, everything was really beautiful. I could just imagine what it would be like if it were not so hot and dry and all of the fields were green and lovely. Actually, I don't know that they would be green and lovely this time of year, no matter what, because it seems like the hay harvest. A bunch of things were like a little bit earlier in the UK than are in Portland. For example, Japanese anemones were in bloom everywhere. Here, they don't bloom till September. So it's a little surprising to see how many things were a little bit ahead of. So many plants in my garden that were really common in English gardens, but they're just a little bit ahead. And I don't know if it's because of the heat wave or if that's more typical um, than where we are here. I know it's a little bit milder climate. I said this in a video that's coming out later today, but I loved looking at the hedgerows and how important the hedgerows are for windbreaks and maintaining separation of pastures and like keeping livestock out, but also just as a food source. It seemed like, especially in the Cotswolds, people really cared about the composition of their hedgerows. And it's all of those plants you would see in a Ruth Goodman, series. And so I found that really, really interesting. Yeah, made me really happy. I have almost everything that grows in a hedgerow I have in my garden, except I don't have hawthorns. But it was really neat to see it all put together, and that the places we went where it was clear that folks were still practicing some of those um, older management techniques for hedgerows, where they would lay the hedgerow down, right? Whether they were using a bill hook and they were laying it in a traditional manner or some other way, like they're very, very well tended. How much of that, again, is because the Cotswolds is almost like stepping back in time, and I don't know if there are restrictions on how you have to manage them or not, but it was really, really neat to see that in person. They don't normally bloom this early. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, Japanese anemones. Yeah, I was just really surprised. Everywhere we went, they were in full bloom. Mm. I really enjoyed Bristol. B wanted to go back to Bristol. It feels like Portland. It feels like a much smaller Portland that's more walkable. I don't know how else to explain it. Like immediately we liked Bristol. I also thought the food was really good there. Um, yeah, and everything was much more affordable. Cotswolds are heavily restricted. That's what I thought. I imagined there were lots, and I know y'all have like your listed buildings that have a lot of restrictions on what you can do with them. Oh, Clarkson's Farm, yeah. I think ocean current that comes in from Cornwall, it affects other parts of England. That makes sense. Big truck in the UK. Somebody told us on our tour to Oxford that cyber trucks are illegal in the UK, which makes a lot of sense. Even the moving trucks are all much more petite to fit down these tiny narrow lanes. And it's interesting how many times when we were riding the buses in Wales, that um, the bus wouldn't fit with a car going the other direction down some of these old narrow streets, and the car coming toward us would just go up on the sidewalk so that they're going. Um, they seem very accommodating of buses. People also don't honk very much in the UK. Drivers in general seem way more chill in their little tiny cars. Cybertrucks are illegal in Europe mainland as well. That's interesting to know. Huh. Makes a lot of sense because they're terrible. Um, okay, thanks for letting me catch up on comments. The hedges are scraping the sides of the vehicle. Yeah, it's fascinating to me to see how much the design has accommodated for the existing roads. Versus in the US, right, where there doesn't have to be any kind of retrofitting or accommodating for existing roads because there's nothing there. So we built the roads after vehicles existed. Not everywhere is like that. Like there's large parts of Portland that were designed around horse scale, and there really shouldn't be parking on the streets. But Here in the US, if you have older cities, then they often will have right away and eat up people's front yards to expand the roads to accommodate our larger vehicles. Versus in the UK, it seems like they're very intentional about preserving the land, and then the roads have to stay consequentially much narrower. I found it really interesting that geographically the UK is about the same number of square miles as Oregon. Oregon has a little less than 4 million residents, I think, and the UK is like 30 million. So you're really packing people in. It's much more geographically, I want to say like, not population wise, excuse me, it's much more dense than it is in Oregon. And so they have to design appropriately. Yeah. Um, when you go to old cities, you can tell the road layout is all over the place. Yeah, it's really fascinating how many places you can just go around and get like almost lost down little twists and turns. I said this in my video that's publishing later today. The consequence of all of that is like what it's like for folks with disabilities in the UK, because everything seems so much less accessible. I feel like in general, I saw far fewer people in wheelchairs and with accessibility devices. I saw 2 people in wheelchairs the whole time we were in the UK. And only one place had 2 places had wheelchair accessible bathrooms. And that was the train station. And then at the British Museum, there was a wheelchair accessible bathroom. The first bathroom that I encountered was not, it was like a tiny little closet tucked back into behind stuff. And so, yeah, it's just interesting for me. Inclusion there is for people with disabilities. I found that really surprising. There aren't water fountains in Ohio. People in Portland love their water fountains and love their bubblers, and then also having water bottles at all times. Hello in Ontario. 5A. Oof. That is a challenging zone to grow in. Yeah, the ADA. We just had the anniversary of the ADA. So important. So important. Just catching up. Okay, let's see. Chicago is one of the first cities to use a grid pattern in urban streets. Yeah. You know what city I find really confusing is St. Louis, which when we lived there, I got lost forever because it's not a grid pattern. It's like spokes of a wheel coming out from down in the center of the city. And so many of the roads, they don't go north, south, east, west. It's like spokes radiating outward. And so you can feel like, oh, I'm going west, but actually really I'm going northwest and I will end up where I don't intend to go. Thank you for explaining what it's like to be ambulatory wheelchair user. Yeah, also, that's a really good point. So many of the restaurants, when we would go to look them up, would just have a sign with a wheelchair and then like a slash through it. Just be like, sucks to be you. If you're in a wheelchair, you can't get into my shop because there are steps going in or it's too narrow or what have you. It's really interesting to see the difference. It's interesting to see the mix of like what other cultures do really, really well and some of the ways that like we do things really well here in America, right? It's not a total shithole here, you guys. There are lots of good things that we have. Milwaukee's on a grid also, yeah. St. Paul, Minnesota. Oh, my Aunt Ruth, my eldest kid, is named after her. She's from St. Paul. Actually, the table that my laptop is sitting on is for my Aunt Ruth. That makes sense. The Cybertruck is not street legal because of the sharp corners, especially when the roads are so tiny. I hear somebody coming out. Casey, is that you? Hi. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Hello. Gripping. Oh, oh my goodness.
Here,
what time is it?
4.
It's 4 in the afternoon, and my husband just brought me a scotch, you guys.
4:13.
Okay, well, I'll give you my coffee, and then I guess I'll have the scotch. Okay, thanks. You're the best.
No, it's iced tea, really, on a hot day.
It's iced tea on a hot day. Thank you. You know what? I'm so jet lagged. It's well, if I'm somewhat converted, it's like 8:30. It's like 8:15 p.m.
If you do an hour a day, it's like 10, 15.
No, that's true. It's an hour a day. I was thinking like half, but yeah. Thanks. How was the store?
Fine.
Come say hi. Come say hi. Can Casey come say hi? Is that okay?
The store was Costco, so it was exactly
You
Costco.
went to Costco. We live really close to Costco, so.
And you have to go with people that like shopping at Costco when you go there.
We don't like to shop.
And they have samples out, and people lose the ability to manage their carts when samples are out.
Yeah. People get really fixated. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
You want to show people your new haircut?
Well, I can't get in there without.
I know you're too big. I know. Sorry, giant person. Say hi.
Hey. just
knocking all my stuff over. Notice the naked walls. We have not had time to put things up on the walls. So.
And we might have to take a break from being in here for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to get everything out of here.
We're going to seal the floor. The floors, and we're going to get gutters on the back. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you crouch down, old
okay.
man.
I mean, a bunch of your viewers said we should do that anyway. So.
Yeah, we're going to seal the concrete floor, and then my guy Scott is going to put gutters on the back. I have a rain barrel. My next door neighbor Ben got rid of his rain barrel, and so we're going to have what are that bring us up to 5 rain barrels?
Yep.
5 rain barrels. And so I'm going to try and do water capture. It's really good because I have some potted plants right next to the garden studio, and then I'm going to add some really big pots on either side, and so having a rain barrel will be really important. So
plus we use it for the chickens.
Someone said you're dishy.
It's an old dude.
You are an old dude. It's okay. I like you like that. I'm old too.
Right. Anyway, put stuff away.
Okay, thank you for getting groceries.
Yep.
You're the bestest.
We needed bread and half and half.
We need bread and half and half. We can't go without half and half. I was telling people in the UK they don't put cream or half and half in their coffee. It's just milk.
I mean, that's doable.
No, it's not. You got. I mean, I suffered through
They
it.
barely drink coffee there.
I know. We do a lot of rainwater capture. So here, sorry, I'm kicking my screen.
We have a double stack over there. We got.
Yeah, I have an old video about it. It's not illegal to do rainwater harvesting in Portland.
Only of improvements to the land, not to the land itself.
Yes,
has to be off the building.
Exactly, has to be from a building. You're right. So we have rainwater capture off our roof. I have asphalt shingles, so it's not potable water. It is. I would love to be able to afford to do a metal roof. That's like long-term goals. But my roof.
Someplace in California.
Yeah, my roof still has 10 years on it, so I don't have to think about it yet. So we have rainwater capture off one side of the house, and it fills up. We could do far more than 4 rain barrels because it rains for 9 months of the year. So basically, there's periods where we just have to turn off the spigot at the top because the barrels are completely full. But then we use that for water for the poultry, and then also to refill the bird bath. And adding this one over here, there's a metal roof on this studio, and I did that on purpose. So like if there's a zombie apocalypse, I could collect potable water off of here, and we're going to do a metal gutter. I have broken both my legs. Casey is an old man with all of his football injuries. We don't like to get up on a ladder if we can help it. So I'm going to hire my guy Scott to do that. And then we're going to seal the floor, and I'm going to put in the mini split myself. That's not going to be difficult. So I'm a big fan of people boycotting American goods. That's totally fine with me. If you live outside the U.S. and you want to put pressure on us economically, go for it. I think that's showing solidarity. Parkrose is a neighborhood in Portland. Sorry, Fox. Parkrose is the name of my neighborhood. People are like, I thought that was your name. No, it's the name of my neighborhood. I really like focusing on local solutions and blooming where you're planted. And so I named my channel after the neighborhood that I live in. I also stole a little bit. There is a permaculturist in a much more posh neighborhood than mine in South Tabor, and hers is called Tabor Tilth. And I thought that was great that she selected the name to reflect her investment in her neighborhood. And she's a really cool property and a very cool house. Back when the Permaculture Guild was doing house tours, I did one tour of my garden once, but we don't really meet anymore. The Portland Permaculture Guild is not really that active, which is we should reconstitute that. We should do that again. It was a really good time. Um, Casey's a low-key cutie pie. He is a cutie pie, you guys. When we started dating, my mom was really worried because he was a senior and I was a freshman, and she knew that he played defensive tackle. And she was like, "You can't date a football player." And I was like, "No, but he's like a, at the time we didn't know he was autistic, but like I was like, he's like a super nerdy, loves board games and like loves to read and is very, very quiet and introverted kind of football player. And he like doesn't drink. And yeah, so it seemed odd that I would date a football player, but not because he's not your typical kind of ex-football player. Um, oh, sorry. Yeah, for people who don't know, half and half is half milk, half cream. I don't know what light cream is. Probably is the same thing as half and half. The government wants the water to recharge the groundwater basin. Yeah, there's lots of places in the US that have restrictions on rainwater capture. Portland is just not one of those places. And it's really important to be aware of what the restrictions are, right? Like you have to think about water as a shared resource, right? Water is life. Water belongs to everybody, even though folks like Nestle try to commodify it. And so when you're doing capture of water off the land instead of off of structures, you're often stopping water that should be flowing through your property and onto somebody else's, or into a watershed, into an aquifer, into a stream, what have you. And so I know that a lot of people really balk at the idea of having restrictions on water capture, but I think it's actually really important when you understand that the way water moves through the landscape doesn't stop at your property boundary. And so totally makes sense to do capture off of structures, but thinking about creating ponds or other ways to capture water, we have to be conscientious of the fact that that's a shared resource. So yeah. I've said this before, I will talk him up every single time people ask me who's your favorite person in permaculture, and it is Brad Lancaster. Rainwater harvesting for dry lands and beyond. There's 2 volumes. Amazing book. Brad is amazing. He has a YouTube channel. He has a ray of sunshine. He's in Tucson. He is the expert on rainwater harvesting and permaculture. Not just permaculture, pretty much anything. He's amazing. Capturing water off of structures does absolutely remove some of what would go into the groundwater. Totally great. Different though than damming an area to create a pond when you have a stream that would be moving through. Does anyone know how tall milkweed can grow in containers? It depends on how large your container is. I have found if you're going to try and grow milkweed at all, I really encourage staking it. My mom was hugely into growing milkweed. She was also a huge fan of I've inherited so many plant stakes and cages from her for everything, like peonies and Japanese anemones and crocosmia. My mom staked everything. But I think milkweed in particular, when it goes to bloom, can be really heavy and it will flop over very, very easily. So whether you're growing it in the ground or in a pot, think about those supports really, really early in that growth process. I would imagine if you have a large enough container, your milkweed can be 3 feet easily. Excuse me. You think you've watched his videos? Brad's delightful. He's delightful. Admire how you're able to multitask with intellectual content. Oh, thank you. I would prefer to talk about permaculture rather than anything else. So even though, like, not making political content for less than 2 weeks, really, on my main YouTube, my views are just like absolutely in the toilet. And my revenue is down 70%. Try not to stress about it. But, at some point, like, I have to do the thing that I'm passionate about. And, yeah, I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. So I really miss teaching workshops. It's part of the reason I want to do this project in California. I think I get asked a lot, would I do workshops on my property again? And I've committed to my kids that I won't do them here while I have children at home. My kids asked me not to have people in our yard and in our bathroom and like making our house a fishbowl. So that's the reason that I stopped doing workshops here. I want to respect that because it's their home as well. But once George is 15, so once he's out and in college, I might consider doing workshops here again. Thank you for playing my old videos when I was young and spry, and the garden was so much smaller. Oh, my views are my revenue is down. When I say down 70%, I mean 70% from what I earned a year ago this month. Actually, it's almost like closer to 75%, but my revenue is down 65% from last month. If I don't put out 4 to 5 videos a day, and they're not videos that are like going to catch in the algorithm immediately, like suddenly this becomes a whole different scene where it's like not really paying the bills. That's okay. That's okay, you guys. I didn't start permaculture videos to like make a living for the first, oh my gosh. So this is year 11. So for the first 8 years, I basically, right, I didn't make any money on YouTube. You know, I'd make like a couple $100 a month. The bulk of my income was from doing plant sales. Actually, that was the number one way that I was bringing in income for the family. And then also like having a YouTube channel, I could write off my internet. By about 8 years in, I was earning enough to pay our mortgage, which is really tiny. You know what? Perks of being on this live, our mortgage is $500 a month. So wasn't a ton. But then also I got to a point where I could pay all the utility bills. So I was paying our mortgage, our utility bills. And then I got to the point where in year 9, I was able to pay all of that every month. And then I was able to fully fund my IRA for the first time since I was like 20 in 1 year. And then 2025 hit, and then my channel got 10 times bigger than it was before. And then suddenly we weren't broke for the first time ever. So yeah. If you want butterflies in your balcony, is that why you're putting in milkweed? I would just encourage you to, the larger the pot, the better. I think for a lot of those plants that are flowering and the flowers are top heavy, giving them as much space and capacity to get a really strong root system to anchor the plant as possible. Right? The bigger the container, the better. And then you have the benefit of watering it less often. Oh, creme fraiche recipe. I have not made creme fraiche. I make yogurt a lot, actually. The attention economy is more insane than anything that came before. I saw a video earlier today. I know we're going way over, but you know what? YOLO. Thanks for hanging out with me extra long. Somebody who put out a video on Instagram, and she does like food reviews. I think she calls herself like the Anthony Bourdain of women. I hadn't seen her before, but you know, she was saying that there are now more social media influencers than like basically anything else, and how that's caused us all to just be captured on our screens all day long. I would argue, especially during COVID, but also for people with disabilities and people who live in rural areas, I think connection via the internet can be a lifesaver. I don't think that being on a screen and interfacing with other people is necessarily bad. I think it is the way that it's all commodified so heavily by the platforms and by all of the commercial interests that are behind the scenes, right? I think like everything, capitalism ruins it. I think there are a lot of good things about connecting with other people over the internet. And also like just a huge resource. Anybody else feel like 2020, 2021, like you learned an insane amount because we were all stuck home on YouTube? YouTube to me felt like such an unbelievably educational space. Not just for like skills based, like, oh, I got to fix this thing myself because a plumber can't come out. I'm going to look up this tutorial and watch it. I also learned so much about history and other parts of the world and like people's weird niche interests just from being on YouTube. Yeah. Lemongrass to keep the mosquitoes away. I really think lemongrass grows well in a pot. I have not grown it here. My mom used to grow it. My mom grew lemongrass, gosh, as long as I can remember. Everywhere we lived, she grew lemongrass in a pot and just took it in the house or put it in the greenhouse in the winter. I haven't really done that. She cooked a lot with lemongrass. It's not just YouTube. I agree with you. There's lots of social media that is... Wait, Trish, was that a negative or a positive comment? Lots of social media that can be educational. I do think TikTok less so. I do think any of the really short form content with the like constant scroll is less educational and more prone to rage bait, right? I want to watch somebody's hour and a half long bread tube video, their deep dive analysis on something. I also really love watching pirated UK shows on YouTube. This is how I have watched all of the like Edwardian Farm and Victorian Farm, anything Ruth Goodman, because I adore her. I learned she's from Cardiff, Wales, by the way. I do watch a lot of crafting YouTubes. In 2020, I spent, no, even before 2020, I spent a lot of time watching soap making videos. That was sort of like my ASMR. I would knit and watch soap making because I've made soap a little bit. I've made lardy soap. Don't recommend rendering down pig fat in your crock pot. I did it just to say I've done it, but it's not something that I'm good at and that I particularly enjoy. But I love watching other people make really cool soap. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. I grew up in a house where we were only allowed to watch PBS. So make of that what you will. But my parents would watch a lot of cooking shows. We enjoy watching other people cook. It's like when George likes to watch streamers play video games. It's like, how is that any different than me watching, Jacques Pepin cook? It's no different. Ruth Goodman is amazing. I adore her. She's an absolute legend. I love the fact that I think she was like a CSA or something. And she's not formally educated, but yet she's an expert. And she's just so well respected. I love her. I adore her. By the way, when we were in the UK, I asked in every single bookstore, there's this book. I'm a big fan of all of the Ruth Goodman stuff, but Peter Ginn from all of those Edwardian Farm, whatever. He has a book that is called The Spoon, A Stirring History. And I was like, I have to read this book. I couldn't find it in the US. I went to Powell's. I checked everywhere. And they were like, oh, the publication date is 2024. But nobody in the US has it. And so when we were planning this trip, my eldest kid, Ruth, was like, you have to find this book when you're in the UK. Every single bookstore was like, so sorry, we don't have it in stock. We don't have it in stock. And then I went to a bookstore. You guys, it's escaping me. A famous bookstore in Oxford. And the guy behind the counter was so nice. And he's like, no. It says publication date 2024, but that's not actually true. They pushed it back and it's not been released yet. And that's why you can't find a copy. So I tried to get myself a Peter Ginn book, but yeah, it's not out yet. I think it'll be probably very silly. The Spoon of Stirring History. Anyway, the Frugal Gourmet, you guys, oh man. Don't look up what happened to Jeff Smith from the Frugal Gourmet. It's not good. It's not good. It's just like looking up what happened to the author of Mists of Avalon. Don't look it up. You will regret it. But yes, Frugal Gourmet was something that we watched a lot in our house. Actually, that's when I started making cheese as a little kid. The first time I made yogurt cheese was after I watched Jeff Smith do it. And we had a setup in our kitchen in San Antonio, and my mom was not happy about it. But I hadn't gotten a cheese press, and so I had to make it in cheesecloth. And my dad helped me make like a little thing with twine in between two knobs on our cupboards, and then I would hang the cheesecloth full of yogurt and make yogurt cheese. And then I started making paneer after that, and then it was all over. Then I was like, I got to make cheese anyway. It was a good cookbook, yeah. Yan Can Cook. Oh my gosh, I totally remember him. Absolutely. What happened to him, Cranky Babushka? He did crimes. He did bad crimes. Not good things. We can't talk about it on live. It's worse than Harry Potter, though. It's worse than J.K. Rowling. Mists of Avalon was a book that I read a lot as a kid. Yeah. Marion Zimmer Bradley also did crimes. Not good crimes. Let's just say Epstein-esque crimes. Yeah. Okay. What other questions do you have? Can I wrap it up in like 10 minutes? Is that okay? I filmed, you guys. This is what happens when you're jet lagged. I was up at 4 a.m. and I had my coffee. I texted Trish. I cleaned the whole kitchen. I made coffee. I prepped all my videos for today. And by like 11 a.m., I had filmed 9 videos. So I have editing to do after this, but I'm not going to film anymore for today. So I had no idea. Yeah. Yeah. Andrew Zimmerman. Oh, he's like a cooking person, right? I haven't seen any of his shows. We watched a lot of Jacques Pepin. I read his autobiography is really interesting. I love in the beginning when Jacques is describing growing up poor in rural France, and he was talking about how their kitchen table, the children didn't have silverware. What they had instead, or no, didn't have dishes, excuse me. And they each got a spoon. Instead, they had a farm table, and depressions were cut in the table, and that was your bowl. And they would just serve food directly into the depressions, and then you would eat your soup or your pasta or what have you out of this depression in the table. And then his mom would like hose off the whole table. I thought that was fascinating. Fascinating. I am a machine with the filming. I have, it is what it is. I have a lot of garden work to do. I have tons. My garden is very, very overgrown, being gone for 10 days and having all of these areas that were construction. I have volunteers of plants. I haven't grown in this garden for 10 years. I have volunteers coming up. Corn poppies, and I have volunteer potatoes. I'm looking right out the window in what should be a path. Volunteer motherwort coming up. I need to get cardboard and get mulching. Anywhere there's bare soil, you're going to get all those dormant seeds that are going to germinate. So I got to get to it. I'm really anxious to get my rain garden completely redone. Right now, there's no clear path to getting into the garden studio because the path is like this wide between the edge of the rain garden and the sidewall of the garden studio. And I can't transplant anything until the rain comes back because I don't want to kill all my perennials. So right now it's just like very awkward to get out here. And I'm very anxious to like get it all cleaned up. I reach a point in the garden year where I'm like, I want to make everything very, very tidy. And usually that doesn't happen until late August, but because there's been so much construction and there's piles of things everywhere, and there's plants that like when we had to prep this area to build the studio, there were a lot of plants that I just healed in various places around the garden. I'm like, this is temporary until I can figure out where you're going later. And now they're hanging out there, and that's like in a path or in a place where they don't belong. So things look really messy. And I just have to like be patient and like live with it being in a state of transition and a state of like kind of temporary chaos for a while longer. Oh, what is in my rain garden? Oh, thank you for asking that. So 15 years ago, maybe, we had a covered back pergola built off the back of the house. It is the north-facing side of the house. Nothing really grew back there because it was kind of shady anyway. But because it's Oregon and it rains 9 months out of the year, I wanted to be able to enjoy the outdoors in my garden in the rainy months. And so we had this pergola built off the back of the house. It has a metal roof. And initially I thought I'll put in gutters and rain barrels. And then I realized that there was such huge rainwater capture potential. And instead, what I did was I built a rain garden directly off the back of it. If you want to look at my old videos on my rain garden, then it might be a little bit more helpful in explaining. So all of that rainwater capture, right, goes and lands in the rain garden, which is a huge buried trench of gravel that I dug down very deep in the garden. And then it gently flows downhill. And then there's another buried trench of gravel, and that directs the water into my annual veggie garden. And so on either side of the rain garden are plants that are really adapted to do well in those conditions. So in a rain garden, you have all of these microclimates because in the basin of the rain garden, which is gravel, it's like a dry stream, right? When it rains, it fills all the way up to the top. If we get a super heavy rain here, it will fill all the way up to the top. And then in a few hours, you can watch it just sink into the gravel and run downstream. And so any of the plants on the interior of the rain garden have to be able to handle more moisture and like a lot of water, right, for potentially hours. And so I have a lot of natives in there, like blue-eyed grass. I also have Japanese iris. I have some sedges in there that do really well in areas with a lot of water, but they also can tolerate periods where it's quite dry as well because it's not raining this time of year. But then the sides of the rain garden are these mounds that go like this. And so the back side of the rain garden is another microclimate where it's actually really dry. It's very sunny and very dry. And so I have like echinacea, and I have a sanguisorba, and uh, um, I have asters. I'm looking out at the rain garden right now. I have asters. I have calendula. I have blue false indigo, things like that. I have um, looking and see. Oh, I have Michaelmas daisies right on the backside, and so you have all these different microclimates, and you get this huge diversity of flowering plants. Nothing in there is edible. It's all just meant to be pretty. I just wanted an area of the garden that looked like a flower garden. So, yeah. Rain gardens here in Portland get you a discount on your water and sewer bill because you are unhooking your downspouts. First of all, you get one discount for unhooking your downspouts from the sewer. My downspouts feed into my rain garden, right? But then a separate rain garden gets you an additional discount on your sewer bill because you are reducing how much runoff goes into the storm sewers. I do have a little free farm stand. You are welcome to search up my videos on that too. It's made out of pallets, and Ruth painted it. I still struggle with this. I asked folks last year. So my yard faces the front of my house gets full southern exposure, and my backyard, right, like where I'm sitting now, I'm facing the street in the front of my house, and this way is east out into the Columbia Gorge. And so the problem with my farm stand is that when it's open and it's facing the street, it gets full sun exposure. And I ask folks, what should I do? Because I find that greens wilt in there very quickly. I put them in jugs of water. But even so, if it's really sunny and I put like a bunch of grapes out there and it's a hot day in September, they'll be wilty by the end of the day. And I don't want to turn it on its side because then people driving down the street won't see it. It's like free, come take whatever you want. And so I had gotten folks saying, well, I should move it into a shadier area. I don't really want people coming onto the property, but I don't really have a good solution. I think a long-term solution would be to get a solar-powered refrigerator and to put some of my more tender produce in there. How hard is it to create different microclimates? It's very, very easy to create. It's very, very easy. You know what you're doing to shift some of the conditions just enough to get a few degrees warmer or a few degrees cooler. And sometimes that's all it takes. I know when we look at the permaculture principle of observe and interact, if you're thinking about microclimates and how do I create them and where are my existing microclimates, take a day when it is frosty out or it has snowed and the sun is just coming up and it's getting close to freezing, right? Close to melting temperatures, and go outside and observe where the snow is melting first or the ice is melting first. That I think is such a good, clear indication of where some of your microclimates are around temperature. And then also observing on your own where some of your microclimates are in terms of wind is really important. So different times of day, observing how the leaves are moving, observing, but just being present in the garden where the wind is. Because I think far more plants than we realize are really susceptible to wind damage and also like dehydration from wind. So there's tons that you can do through windbreaks if you want to be able to reduce that impact, understanding that if you put in a windbreak, right, then you get this effect where the wind damage is, instead of hitting right here, it's the wind goes up and over and you end up with wind damage over here. But likewise, ways that you can influence the amount of water that is coming through and influence the temperature. It's not actually that difficult. I found that I can push the envelope in certain areas to get more of the conditions that I want for specific plants so that they're happy. What about shade sheet, like an awning? Yeah, totally agree. Having shade cloth is a great way to create a microclimate and reduce your temperature by sometimes 10 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Wait, there was a question and I missed it, you guys. Oh, when your unschooled children were choosing their college majors, was there any fear that AI would take over white collar jobs? That's a great question. You know, my kids are really anti-AI, like more than me. Like hugely anti-AI. Ruth wasn't worried about it because fish and wildlife biologist, there's no way that AI can do most of that job. B wasn't really worried about it for law school. I don't know. if y'all saw, there have been a couple of cases in the news where lawyers have had AI write some of their arguments, and the judges have caught them because AI has hallucinated court cases as evidence. And then the judges went back and checked on their briefs, and they were like, "This is not a real court case. You had AI write this for you, didn't you?" So B's not particularly worried about it. I think she's pretty well aware that there's going to be a huge need for attorneys in the time to come. Hal, he's only 18, right? But he wants to be an archivist. He's a history major. And I think he's a little bit worried about what's happening with archiving materials. I think there will be a huge need for archivists in the future to document what's happening in this period in history and to conserve materials. My kids have not really been that worried about AI. I think they've mostly been fully confident that AI is going to collapse. Actually, I have a video coming out on this later today entitled "AI is Cooked," but they're much more aware. They have their finger on the pulse of like what the programming is like, what kind of bullshit that the technocrats are spewing, and they're pretty confident. Like Ruth is the one who's always saying AI is like Theranos. It is over delivering on promises. There is no pathway to profitability. It does not deliver the same kind of product that human beings can deliver. And so my kids are not really that worried about it. Yeah. I don't know if they answered it. George doesn't know what he wants to do, but he's only 15. And I'm always telling him, you don't have to know what you want to do at 15. Or you can decide what you want to do and then change your mind, right? Books and histories are feeding into AI and destroying. Yeah, so I'm trying to decide if I want to make a video about this because I saw a creator yesterday talking about how freaked out she is that due to this court case about plagiarism, right? And rights, OpenAI now has to scan existing works. They can buy a book and then scan it to train their AI with it. So they're buying up paper copies of books and then they're cutting off the spine and scanning them. And I saw a lot of people getting really, really freaked out. And I have mixed feelings about that. I don't think that we should be destroying books at all, but also all kinds of archives who don't have the advanced scanners where you can just rest it. It doesn't damage the spine and it flips the pages. All kinds of archivists and libraries have used this process of cutting off the spine and functionally destroying a book. They're not using like rare first edition copies of Moby Dick, and they're not using like the Book of Kells, or they're not using like list some other rare books for me, right? They are buying up used copies of books and scanning them to train AI, and that's not great. I don't love it, but I don't think it's the catastrophe that everybody, like, books aren't going to disappear. They're buying, some copy of like the Cider House Rules, right? So in that regard, I don't think it's actually equivalent to book burning, and I don't think we're going to lose paper copies of books. I think there's a little bit of a panic over that, right? But I do think that the long-term consequences are, like I was talking about money earlier, when everything is digitized and corporations own the rights to it, because what they want to do is have private corporate control over your banking, over your music, over your books, right? Then you don't really ever have possession of those things. So that, I think, is the long-term risk of all of that. I heard a librarian talking about what an absolute bunch of horse shit it is that these AI companies, because of this court case, are allowed to scan entire copies of books to have it train AI, but librarians are not legally allowed to scan an entire copy of a book and upload it digitally. So I think that's really frustrating. I also know, like, this also had me thinking about how many textbooks in college are all digital now, and that college students can't even buy textbooks. They have to rent them for a term or for a year. And it's so frustrating for my kids. My two middle kids have pretty significant dyslexia, by the way. And they rely a lot on a natural reader or some of these other programs. Otter, I think it is, maybe. They know the names of the programs better than me, that will scan their books, digital books, and then read them aloud to them. When you have these rented textbooks, there is a limit on the number of pages that you are allowed to scan. And that includes with accessibility devices. So my kids will get to a point where they're only allowed to scan out, I think it's like 50 pages of the book. And then they suddenly no longer have accessibility in the same way that, like, their disability accommodations say they are allowed to have audiobook versions or they are allowed to have natural readers scan and read. Ooh. Oh, I think there's a catbird in my yard, you guys. Oh, wonderful call. Sorry, that's unusual for me. Okay. So I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so it just shows that like the ownership is actually controlled by these corporations, and they can set limits to how much they can just turn off your ability to be able to have the audiobook reader scan and read it aloud to you. It's super frustrating. I like reading paper books too. I prefer paper books. I actually really like audiobooks as well. I'm much more of a visual learner than an auditory learner, but I also really like to multitask. And so I like to listen to a book or a podcast while I'm doing yard work or dishes or on a hike, what have you. But I prefer a paper book, right? Versus I don't like to read Kindles or digital books. I like to read. By the way, I'm so sorry. I don't know if I left her card in here. I did not. I just finished this book that got sent to me a couple of weeks ago, and I will remember the name of the gal who sent it to me. I'm so sorry. One day, everyone will have always been against this. This is such a great book. I wish I had read this earlier. I'm so grateful that this got sent to me. It's a hard read, you guys, but a really, really good comment from somebody on social media yesterday. Do you guys know that Thorne Bradley? He's that guy who built his massive TikTok on looking hot and splitting wood and having a bunch of tattoos. But he's really opposed to Trump. And he was talking about the time to come. And somebody in his comments said, right, there's going to be an awful lot of grandkids in the future whose grandparents denied that they were ever had any association with MAGA or that they ever voted for Trump. It really reminded me, not of all of what's in this book, because it's far more deep than that, but just this whole concept of like someday in the near future, maybe before our grandkids, there will be a lot of people who said, I didn't support that. I was never down with that. That wasn't me. They want to deny any association. Thorne Bradley, I think, is also somebody, right? He was a little bit of a thirst trap, but he was somebody who was like, I'm going to do the right thing. I think he had a lot of conservative viewers, and yet he's been pretty outspoken. He's much more moderate than I am, but very outspoken against Trump. Good on him. Did you guys see Miss Rachel, who is after my time? Like, my kids are too old to have watched her. She makes children's programming with like a little bit of a baby voice, and she's very sweet and compassionate. She is also somebody who has risked her entire platform to advocate for the safety and well-being of children, kids in detention, kids in Palestine. She has been getting a lot of death threats because she said something like, Black children deserve to grow up. And she got death threats for that. And also for speaking out on what's happening in Palestine. Like, she's just been so courageous. And I think it's really, really, really shows you people's strength of character, how much they're willing to risk in these times. So I agree with you. If the author narrates their own book, I really like that. Barbara Kingsolver often narrates her own audiobooks. Her book, Animal Vegetable Miracle, she and her daughter narrate it, and I love it. Love it. Yeah, I do think, like, right, for people with accessibility needs, I think technology is wonderful. And some of that technology is AI, right? Like, AI could be used in a way that is not resource heavy. And also, it's the overpromising in the attempt to like jack up profits. But like, I think there are ways that AI could be absolutely used for accessibility and used to be a positive. Trish says 10 minutes. Totally, I'm with you, girl. 10 minutes. Oh yeah, Daniela reads her own book too. Yeah, I haven't listened to her audiobook. I've just read her actual books. Grandchildren poking around in their grandparents' closets will find MAGA hats, and it will be as if they found KKK robes. I think so. I think that it will be a great shame. People will be hiding their association. People, you know what? The internet is almost forever. Yeah, Trish, thank you for reminding people. Don't forget to sign up for our email list. If you go to my website, parkrosepermaculture.com, the landing page is a sign up for my email list where I will not spam you, but I am redoing my Kickstarter and making some changes to it based on things that happened right before break. And so I will have it's either tonight or tomorrow. It depends on how long it takes me to edit. More landscape style videos like I did in the before times, no filter landscape videos where I talk about topics for longer than 10 minutes. So that requires more editing. And I got real editing software. You guys, for 10 years, I edited on iMovie on my phone. And the older I get, the harder that is on my eyes. And iMovie is also a terrible editor. But like when I was taking care of my dad, and we were constantly going to doctor's appointments, or I would sit with him at the nursing home and he would just be dozing. I could edit on my phone. Like the ease of use on your phone meant that I just used iMovie. But now I'm getting profesh and I'm editing on my laptop, but it's a learning curve because I'm a bit of a Luddite. So, intersectional environmentalist. That is on my. I don't have the. Okay. I'm just making a note because I want to add that to my audiobook list. I had no idea. Okay. Sorry to be so awkward typing during the live feed. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to add that to my book list. I had it on my list to read, but I love it when an author narrates it. I think it's okay. Like I'm actually hopeful that we'll see more people who I wish we could create space for people. I was talking about this on Blue Sky, to be in process. Like I don't ever want to become so jaded and cynical that I can't believe that people will change and that I don't feel space to evolve and change. I think we're going to see people who are learning to do better, who hopefully we can create room for them to say, I voted for Donald Trump and that was a mistake and I want to work to make amends. I hope that we will be able to do that. I hope that we will get to a place as a society where restoration for those folks. Oh my gosh, CapCut Pro. It's it's nothing fancy. It's just CapCut Pro, but that's so much more involved than what I was using before. So they had a really, really, really good coupon. It was less than half price. So yeah, Trish wants me to learn to use DaVinci. Are you planning on returning to the UK? I would love to go backpacking in Wales. I said this at the beginning. I don't know if you were there. One of my lifelong dreams is to backpack through Wales. And I would love to. I got to save my pennies again now. So I got to figure that out because Ruth is going to go for a year to New Zealand to study. You know, like Oregon is really a hub of fish and wildlife. You know where else is New Zealand? So she's going to go study there for a year. And she may stay there and get her master's degree or her PhD down there. So I have to save up for a trip to. Wait a minute. That doesn't work that way. Oregon here, New Zealand. I was going the wrong way, you guys. New Zealand down here. I got to save up for a trip to go visit her down there. So I have no idea when I will be able to go back to Europe, but I would love to go back and backpack through. I also would love to go back to the continent. I would love to take some of my kids. I think Hal, as a history major, Hal has said he really wants to go to Finland. That's an area that really interests him. I would like to take him there. I really loved Helsinki. We're working on growing my skills. You guys, I downloaded OBS Studio 2 months ago. Two months ago, and I still haven't figured out how to use it. It's very confusing to me. I loved Finland. It was amazing. I think the Finns are like a little bit odd ducks, and so we fit in with them. They're my experience is they're quite quirky. New Zealand programs are wonderful. I'm so glad that she took the initiative. My kids were just like, this is what I want to go study. This is where I want to go. I'm really proud of them for continuing to prioritize their education. I'm really proud of like any young person who can focus on anything right now. There's been a lot of backlash the last day or so on social media. I saw this whole Instagram tirade about like Gen Z, Gen X beef. And I'm just like, my experience with Gen Z has been so positive. Like these are kids that are holding on. They lived through the pandemic and they're doing the best that they can to get their college degrees and then like strike out and try and have some kind of a life when they're holding down 3 jobs and they don't feel that the American dream is accessible to them and yet they're persevering. So yeah, I'm really proud of Gen Z. I think they're doing good. Yeah, if you want to write me, I do have a PO box. I had mail today. I got mail today. Wait, let me see if I can find any of it. I have gotten to a point where I'm not reading cards on live because I made the mistake of trying to do that. And someone sent me a very personal story and I got partway through and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can't read this out loud. I got a lovely card today. It says, thinking of you and praying the Lord is with you. And then people send me homemade cards. You guys, I save all of these. I started a scrapbook. This one says, you rock, Angela. It's from Darcy. Thank you, Darcy. So my kids also really get a hoot out of, like, they really, really enjoy reading the mail. So thank you. Wales and New Zealand both have more lambs than people, and I love sheep. Oh, this is the yarn I bought in Wales. We can do this for the last minute. 100% Welsh yarn. So it was a little bit expensive. It was a little bit expensive. Not any different, I think, than good quality yarn in the US, but I couldn't buy like enough to make a sweater. This is, you guys, I cannot pronounce Welsh. So despite the fact that I watched many, many tutorials so that I would not humiliate myself as an American when we got to Wales, I still can't pronounce it. This is 100% wool from naturally colored sheep. And okay, I'm gonna type this in the chat before we go, see if you guys can pronounce this. Okay. CWMCHWEFRU. Oop. Okay, I can't pronounce that. I'm really sorry. That is the brand of wool. So I got this, and then this one is Cambrian wool from the flax of Wales. So that is going to be the decoration. Okay, so for folks who missed that, yeah, it's a word. It's just different pronunciation rules, and I don't have them down pat. So because I took Mandarin Chinese in college, languages, especially languages with like conjugations and declensions, my brain just doesn't deal. Capable with being a polyglot. She's pretty fluent in German, and she wants to take Spanish next. She's been studying Chickasaw. Casey took Hebrew and Greek and Spanish. Like at least 2 members of my family got the language gene. I did not. Not me. Don't have it. So, yeah. We live on what could be an ideal habitat for endangered plants that are not generally sold at native plant sales. Any thoughts on how to go about contacting groups that might be in a position to help? Oh, that's a really interesting question. That is a fantastic question. Oh, hi, Casey's in the chat. Hello, husband. Yeah, you're also trying to learn Chickasaw. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to exclude you and Ruth from Ruth. That is a really good question. I don't know what local conservation groups there are near you. I know that there are, especially I think sheep farmers, regenerative sheep farmers, who focus on folding in a lot of those native plants, rare plants, and repopulating their pastures with those. So I don't know exactly what that would look like where you are. I would locate your local conservation groups, right? And see if they might be able to supply you. Like, for example, here, there are volunteer groups that will work on planting your fields with camas for like a major example of the kind of like native, more rare plants that people want to repopulate isn't the right word, reintroduce to areas where the camas has all been damaged or removed. So yeah, that's a really, really great idea. I think that really folds in. Sorry, Tricia, I'm going over. I think that really folds into that permaculture ethic of fair share. If you have land, how can you use it in a way that like you don't actually really get any profit or yield out of it? You're just giving that land over to create habitat for endangered species. So that's really thoughtful. I actually really love that. Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, as a gift to the land itself. Thank you for framing that much better than me. That's absolutely right. Oh, thank you, Trish, for looking up that. Thank you. Well, I will show you guys what I knit with that when I'm done. Okay, thanks for hanging out with me for 2 hours, you guys. I might go take a nap, I think, and edit video. And I hope that y'all are doing okay. I hope that y'all are staying cool. Please don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter. Every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, I'll be here. Probably not normally for 2 hours. I am going to start doing my Monday live streams on my side channel because they're going to focus more on politics and breaking news. It's okay if you just catch the end. It's all archived, so you can just watch it. The minute this live stream ends, YouTube starts compressing it and then re-uploading it so that it should be available publicly within like 10 or 15 minutes max. Yeah, I don't have any in real life. They're totally fake. Yeah, thanks, you guys. Thanks for all your kind thoughts, and thanks for hanging out with me, even though I'm definitely not at 100% today. Definitely very tired, and I know that this was a little bit more awkward of a chat. And thanks to everybody who hung out with me while we had internet glitches. You guys are amazing. I can't stop reading the comments. Okay, I will let it go there. I'm going to go back in the house and hang out with the fam and take a nap. And you guys take care, stay cool, and I will see you next week, right? Next week at the same time. Well, 2 hours before now. I'll see you at 3 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. Okay, bye-bye.